The only known absence for today is Jim Casey, who is at a training, so he will catch up by watching the recording. As I mentioned, we do have really just under an hour today. We've got folks that need to be on the road at 9:30, so we're going to move through things. Hi, Annie. Just looking at the agenda here. There have been no new questions that have been submitted to the website since really the beginning of August. And then wanted to just quickly review, I did put together just a draft timeline of sort of what our time looks like from here on out that I sent out to you guys. Our meeting today, there is a slight change. We are going to hold on reviewing the outline of the project budget. We've got a little bit more work to do, and I think some of the things we'll talk about today may actually play into what that looks like. So we will save that for our next meeting, and Tony's diligently working through that. And then we will review the updates on the concept plans. Next meeting, we will review the budget, discuss key aspects of the concept plan, 1-story, 2-story, again, the budget, and potentially vote to adopt the final plan. I put a question mark there. If we're not ready, we're not ready. I suspect we might be, but you know, in the event we need more time after that, I think we could probably have one more meeting or so. And then if we are able to adopt the final plan at the next meeting and we feel comfortable making a formal recommendation to the select board, there is a meeting on October 10th, I think I saw on the calendar. We could potentially attend that meeting and make the formal recommendation. But again, if we need a bit more time, I think that we've got a few weeks to sort of flush everything out. And then we'll have some conversations around what this committee looks like after we make a recommendation. And if there is an appetite for folks to play a part in getting the word out on what the recommendation is, how we got here, what it entails. I think there's some potential for all of us or a subset of us who want to play a part in that to do that. But we'll talk about that more later. Anything from Chief Cobb? Anything newsworthy? Nothing newsworthy? Okay. Well, then, without further ado, I will hand it over to Tony, Bob, and John to walk us through the test fits.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
What most of today we want to spend the time on is going over the concept plans that John and Bob will present in a few minutes. I wanted to just talk a little bit about budgeting and what we're doing for the next meeting. So with the select board's direction to move away from reusing this facility, the existing PD, narrowing down to the Newport Road site, we had talked early on about developing the 1-story, the 2-story, cost estimate for reno of the existing multiple site options. We've kind of moved away from all that. So with the direction to move away from that, we're taking those available hours that we would have put into the multi-concept budgets to better spend that time on the focus of the single site that we are now keyed in on, still looking at a 1- and 2-story option. So you will be able to evaluate what that means in relation to construction, clearing of a site, access of a site. There's some questions that you all will have to address on whether you like the look of a 2-story building. Is it more prominent? How it fits on the site? And Bob's going to go over that. Operationally, Chief would need to weigh in on what goes upstairs, what goes downstairs. We kind of did some of that. But I wanted folks to just be clear. I wanted to be clear to you that it's not 5 different pricing options. You're going to get one that shows a couple of different options on a single site, because that's where our primary focus has been. We're working on that. It will be ready with both a 1- and 2-story option for our October 4th meeting. So, unless there's any questions as to budget and the cost estimating that we're putting together, it's going to be based off the drawings you see today. They're conceptual, and we all understand what that means. So moving forward, there's in architectural world, there's schematic design where things start to take on a little more rigidity in design and a little more finalization. Then you move into construction documents, design development and construction documents, which is where we really start bringing in mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural engineers. Changes beyond that point take a lot more time and effort because there's a lot more engineering involved.
Tony, let me just interrupt you
Yes.
to make it clear that you're not doing anything more about the Bucher building, but we are. And the selectmen are still committed to providing the town with numbers related to the use of the Bucher building, both for police and other purposes.
Okay.
That's outside your assignment.
Okay. If you need any help looking at those numbers, let me know.
Right, but that's,
Yep.
but I didn't want the recording to suggest that we had walked away from providing those numbers that we promised to do.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. So just wrapping up that design process, there will be more estimates as the drawings get more refined. I bring that up only because in the terminology of final acceptance of a plan, there's still going to be movements, and Bob and John and Chief Cobb are going to work on those. They're moving walls, they're moving doors, they're refining little areas and spaces within a space. They're not going to move the needle on budget. So my next 2 weeks, the concept can change, things can grow. You can ask for moving the parking lot a little bit east, shift the building a little bit north, whatever it may be. It's not going to impact the dollars greatly. And if anything does, we'll have to adjust at that time. So with that, Bob and John, take it away.
Thank you. So I'm Bob Robachek. You guys know me, and you know John Adams. I'm going to go through the first couple of slides on this, including the site. We made a couple of very minor adjustments. Since we sent the other one, we removed the optional road and a couple of minor things. But so unfortunately, we printed your handout prior to that. So, but this is the official presentation, and we did reshare it with everybody yesterday afternoon. So let's talk about where we are right now, and we're getting close to the finish line. The building, don't worry about the building, it's not going to be brown or this color or that color. We really were focusing on the site and the test fit. I will say that we, at least LBA, were very pleased with the way it laid out. It worked out very well. Functionally, there are a couple of minor tweaks I think we'll make with Chief Cobb. We actually know what one of them is right now, but it won't affect, as you said, Tony, it won't affect very, very much. Between now and your October, is it 10? We're gonna develop the exterior a little bit more. We'll do a rendering of the front of the building. John will talk about that when he does his piece. So I don't want you to get hung up about, well, there's dormers, but there's nothing in a dormer. This is just a massing diagram. And also John will explain to you, or share with you, I should say, when we talk about the exterior, the last page of the presentation, there's large areas of a building like this that do not have windows, such as evidence holding, booking, processing, Sally Port. This is not a school building or a shopping center or somewhere you just put windows everywhere. There's security issues all over the place with a building like this. So you're not going to have the kind of windows you would have if this was a school or a community center, but we're very aware of those things. So John, we'll talk about some of that. But the massing is good. The design isn't finished. So I want to talk about, I'm playing with this computer and the mouse is a little bit tricky. So, okay, so let's talk about the site. So our civil engineer is VHB. First of all, we want to thank the town for sharing that information from 2022, because we didn't have, when we met last time, we didn't have any of that. So we didn't know about any wetlands or vernal pools or anything like that, because when VHB looked into the site, cursory, before we met last time, that information wasn't clearly available. I'm going to spend a few minutes on the site. Everybody can hopefully see the screen. You have it in front of you. The only difference is in yours that we took out that optional road. So Newport is a state road, and we are because you really want two means of egress and ingress out of the site. You can't just have one driveway. It's not, I mean, Chief Cobby can support us on this. It's not good police design. If that gets blocked, you have no way to go out. And so we're showing two different ways in and out. The public area, if you look at my mouse on the screen, if you can see the mouse, we have a public entrance. Our engineers looked at the setback away from Hilltop Place, and also the distance between driveways. These are in compliance with what the state, New Hampshire DOT would look at, okay? In a conceptual way, but they're correct. We looked at how it would impact the wetlands in a very cursory manner. Little table at the bottom, we would be just under 10,000 square feet of disturbed wetland, which puts us into the minor category. If you look at that chart on your handout, if we only did one driveway, it would be less, but I would just tell you, as public safety designers, we would strongly urge against that, okay? If you're able to get some other way out of the site to a private road, that's fine, but we don't recommend one. When you add all the disturbances, again, this is conceptual, okay? We're just under 10,000. The site, however, laid out very well. The building you see as it's shown there, it is north is to the upper left. So the building laid out very well on the site. We have a public entrance that could be shared by police. We have a public parking, and then we have a separate police secure parking for a variety of vehicles, police vehicles, employee vehicles. We have a vehicle impound. We're showing a certain amount of covered spaces here, right where my mouse is covered. So that'll be like optional to build a covered carport there for 6 cars. And everything else that is police related, the trash, antenna, generator, are all in a secured area. The idea would be to have a fence around that and to have access gates on both ends. Okay, are you with me?
Hey, Bob?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? It's Ashley.
Yeah.
When we say disturbance, 2,600 square feet, what is disturbance?
That means we're disturbing X amount of area of wetland. So
Okay.
that's how that plays into the chart that's at the bottom. So like minimum would be under 3,000 feet of disturbance. The minor would be 3,000 to 10,000. We're just under
Okay.
10,000 with 2 driveways
Yep.
as shown. And then major would be over 10,000. We're not in major. So again, we're not in a situation here in the study to be able to do wetland delineation, get a wetland scientist out here. We don't know what the prior owner did when they did the plan that they shared with you in 2022. But our engineers have looked at it enough to be able to understand what the proposed impact might be. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And that could be, during the design phase, and Tony can speak to that, we could talk about, do we do compensatory storage somewhere, mitigation somewhere else on the site? Do we just remove that wetlands because we have to get into the site? Those are conversations that we're gonna have in the next phase of design. We just want to make sure the site works, the parking works, circulation works, that we're able to provide security for the police parts of this project, and to provide 2 means of egress in and out. The 2022 diagram that was done, I guess, by the owner of the property, is that correct? Just showed 1 means in and out, which we don't recommend. In the end, it's up to you, but we don't recommend it. One of the things I also wanted to mention, and Tony picked up on this, if you look at the diagram where my mouse is there, I don't know if you can see the mouse. The average, when you look at sort of the midpoint of the elevations of the frontage onto Newport Road, we're at approximately 13, 14 as a midpoint, okay? Our engineers are recommending, civil engineers are recommending putting the first floor at 13, 16, so it's about 2 feet above that. Again, this is very preliminary. This is not a construction document. What Tony wanted us to show you is that, so let's say the ridge line of this roof, John, is going to be the 1-story, maybe what, 18, 20 feet, say 20 feet? 20 feet at the peak of the ridge line. He'll show you the 3Ds, you have it already. If you do a 2-story building, the second floor, and this is in this little box up here in your drawing, in your package, second floor floor line would be about 1328, 12, 13 feet higher. So the building itself would be another 12 foot taller. So you might get about a 30, what do you think, John, about 30, 35 feet, the top of the ridge of a two-story roof. So one of the things that Tony wanted me to touch on, feel free to add, Tony, what you wish, is that you can have a lot more visibility from the road of a two-story building, right? Operationally, the chief prefers a one-story building, and we agree with that. The one-story is better operationally. Also, a two-story has more footage because you have stairs and elevator and all that good stuff. But even here, the top of the roof would be, I don't know, John, 14 is the midpoint, slabs of 16, probably another 25 feet above that.
24 to 28.
So you'll still be still be able to see the building from the road. It's not, but it is, as Tony pointed out, and we'll have this we'll add it to the drawing, Tony, we just didn't have time. From this point where my mouse is, if you look at the screen, to this corner is probably about 225 feet. This is 200 right here. It's about 225, 230 feet. But the site does slope up. It really slopes up behind the building, right? So I just wanted you guys all on board with what I just said? Okay.
Yeah, I think the other thing to note is that there are two sets of power lines. So it does feel like this would be pretty far set back.
Yes.
Yep.
But the power lines, our engineers looked at that and it didn't feel there's any impact on the project. So,
It'll be roughly about 150 feet away from them.
yeah, we're not going to be even close to those. So it's not, yes, Phil.
So I pulled safely off to the side of Route 11 and stuck my head out the window and took a picture of those power lines. There are 12 lines, as near as I could tell, some of which are high-tension lines, and they're not going anywhere. I think it's worthwhile, especially for the people on the committee, to get over there, maybe park in the post office and walk over and look at this, because I don't think you're even going to see the building. All you're going to see is this jungle gym of wires. It's a real mishmash.
Thanks, Phil.
And I do have a picture on my cell phone. It's not the best, but if anybody wants to see it.
We went to the site, but it's funny because when we went to the site, we could drive by it on the way out of town. We parked and we did walk out. I think we were with you, Chief Cobb, right? And it didn't make as big of an impression on us, but we'll take another look at it. But from the standpoint of interfering with a radio tower and all that stuff, the building is far enough set back that, I mean, if this is a residential area, you'd be building homes where this building is. So, the next document, the next sheet is very similar. The only difference between the two is the grades are showing there. And we asked the engineer to do these two separate plans so that it's not an overwhelming amount of information on any one of the plans. What this does show is that there's a pretty quick grade change to the back as you look. But in talking to our engineers and for pricing purposes, Tony, he didn't think there would be needing of a retaining wall or anything there. It could just be done with slope. So they're just showing that. They're showing the grades. Again, the site seems to work fine. We're just trying to stay under that 10,000 foot disturbed. And if this proceeds to the next phase, one of the first things that we would do is engage VHB into the process to do a wetlands delineation to make sure that the information that was provided by the select board through Kim is accurate, so we can make some final decisions about the amount of impact on that wetlands. And I think, based on your question, thanks for asking, I was able to explain that more without being a civil engineer. But the idea is to mitigate as little as possible and not go over the 10,000, and then make a decision whether on-site, John, correct me if I'm wrong here, but on-site we can make compensatory wetlands, or that we just basically eliminate that footage, right? So the idea is not to disturb the vernal pools and all of that. And again, this is just a conceptual plan, but if you look at where my mouse is, that's where some of that information was right there, right where my mouse is right there, okay? Everything else in the layout is the same, and the same information about the elevation of what would be a second floor is the same as on the prior sheet. So, if we're okay, I'd like to move to the next thing. Are we good to move? I'm trying to move to the next sheet without using a mouse because there we go, okay. So I'm going to turn this over to my compadre, John Adams.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So you guys have all seen this plan. We created this plan from the program. One thing I'd want to point out is that there is some difference in square footage based on the block plans from the space program to the actual block program. And the reason why is we took some liberties to try to create some features to the building so that we had some aesthetic design to it so that it wasn't just a simple box. So hence the difference in square footage. I'm challenging myself to try to reduce that square footage to match the space program. So Bob and I and the chief, we're going to take a look at the plans and see where we can, reduce the plans without, affecting the function of the building.
I would just say two things. One is don't let the orientation throw you off because the plan you're going to see is the rotated. This is exactly what we showed you and you approved to proceed further when we met 2 weeks ago. The other thing I wanted to build on what John said is that the program was about 14,200 gross foot, okay? When we did this block plan that we decided as a group to proceed, that number was about 14,801 to be exact. It's an upper right corner. When you look at the space plan we're going to show you, we're within 60 feet of that, which is less than 1/3 of 1%, okay? So the jump in the footage was made at a gross block plan level to get to this layout that you see here on screen. And then we work with that, but we work within that envelope, but we're still gonna look for some efficiencies. I just wanted to point that out
Yep.
because the actual space plan is basically right on, okay? I'm gonna go to the next slide if my mouse will let me, which it's fighting.
Yeah, so.
There we go.
So one thing to point out from the block plan to the space program, which is the next plan that we'll be looking at, is that we have some adjacency differences that the chief and I and Bob are going to take a look at to see if we can get it closer to how she wants it laid out. So some minor changes, but overall the function, the square footages is all there. So
So I'm blowing way up here, John, so they can really,
yeah,
see
so if
it.
we can start at the front and we can walk them through the building, so.
And I'll be using the mouse, if you can see the mouse on screen, I'm not sure you can, but,
So on the right, all of the yellow is common space. So what we've done is we've developed a space where we could have the community come into this facility. They can use the multipurpose room, there's restrooms, all that stuff there. The lobby has service windows off of records and dispatch so that if one department's not there, then the other one can pick up. But everything is kind of centrally located through here so that you guys can cut this wing off and open it up to the public whenever you guys want. And then the back of the building is basically properly secure for police function, so.
So one of the things that we're very careful about is, and there is one thing, that fitness room should not be yellow. That fitness room is really a police function. So we were so focused on the layout that is not a public function, to be clear. Nor is the main hallway going back and forth. So we're gonna color code that differently. But what I would say was that one of the things that a good public safety designer will do is the actual access for staff into dispatch and into records is within the secured area of the police department, not off the lobby. If we had doors, and the chief will tell you this, if we had doors off the lobby into those, that's a security breach. You guys with me? So that's a key feature in good public safety design. I think the chief would agree with that, so,
Can I ask another clarifying question?
yes.
I'm seeing TLT written in many,
Yeah, so we use some funny abbreviations, but.
it's bathroom.
It's toilets.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. The word toilet's too big it takes up all the room, so. But again, so everything public-wise is a majority in the yellow minus the fitness. So again, the red dash light would be bullet-resistant type material so that we have like a man trap so that, the PD can let people in and they can keep them out whenever they want. Dispatch is set up so that we can have 3 consoles. Dispatch as a service window, as I mentioned. The dispatch supervisor overlooks the console area, so they have a visual window from their office overlooking the dispatchers. And then in the back is basically support. So we provided their own break room, their own toilet, and lockers so that they don't need to leave that area.
So I just want to say one thing, because, we do this for a living, and we're going through this plan, and we've looked at this plan for hours and hours. This plan incorporates all the program requirements that were approved on August 2nd. I believe that was the date, Tony, August 2nd. The sizes of these spaces are in some cases -2, 3% and plus 2, 3% of that. So there's nothing that was cut out. It's physically, very accurate to the program. Any growth in that program was strictly due to the shape of the building or circulation a little bit here and there, and we can look at that before we finalize it over the next 2 weeks. But that's an important thing to say, because when John talks about these spaces, they are per the program. That's important to know that. Thanks, John.
One change that we're gonna try to do is get records closer to admin. So we're gonna flip the green with the fitness room so that we have that adjacency that the chief is looking, and then on top of it, we can get a noisy fitness room away from the administration. So, but moving past the red dash lines is where we're in the secure area. So as you can see, we're trying to get the departmental support, like the lockers, the break rooms, close to the fitness so that they're not traveling throughout the building to use vice versa. Admin is closer to the front so that if there's any sort of visitors, they don't need to go through the entire building to basically get to anyone in that space. So we kind of strategically place these departments in a layering system as we move back. So the further you go back to the building, the more secure it gets.
Right, I mean, we're going through this with you, but when we do this kind of planning, there's dozens of decisions that we make as we go, and and we use our experience from many other projects and other input we've gotten from other departments and lessons learned. So John said it beautifully, the building gets more and more secure as you go back, culminating in as you go into the booking, processing, holding in the evidence, which is the most secure area. But keep going, John.
Yep. As we discussed before, there's one main central corridor down the middle of the building, and this is what we find the most efficient, so that easy circulation getting in and out of the building, but we also get to maximize the program space so that we can have a reasonable size office. We can have a good break room. We have flexibility for lockers and stuff like that. So all of these decisions play into the factors of all these departments as we move forward. So the other thing that we want to keep in mind is trying to keep an open concept in each department so that it's not just a bunch of closed offices and it's tight and cramped. We want to make it light, bright, and airy. So entering into the administration, we have a reasonable size reception, and then an admin assistant right off the reception for greeting or helping or whatever. As you go back into the admin office, you have the prosecutor office, the deputy, the patrol, and the chief. So, and we also provided a separate bathroom so that they don't need to be traveling through the building to use a restroom. They have their own personal one there.
And again, everything you see here is per the program. We didn't embellish it, we didn't take stuff out. Okay, I mean, that's critical to understand that, so.
What we also try to do is use every nook and cranny. So like, again, a copy area doesn't need to be huge, but it could be off a corridor or an open area so that we can have a multi-purpose kind of open concept. So we try to place things centrally located so that everyone has easy access to them. To the left would be patrol, and what we have here is basically per the program is we have part-time offices, which is basically a hotspot. That's a flex space where they come in, they do their reports, and then they can be off and doing driving around the town and stuff like that. We got bike storage off the exterior walls so that we don't have large pieces of like bikes or signs or whatever traveling through the office to get to these storage areas. So we're strategically placing these things to have easier access from inside and outside. You can see within here, we have the armory, the firearm cleaning and the ammo. We provided exterior access so that we're not going downstairs and lugging down a bunch of ammo up and down the stairs. They can literally just roll them in from a cart from delivery out back. So it's a lot simpler of a process.
And that whole area, these 3 rooms, if you look at my mouse, the ammunition storage, armory, and firearm cleaning would be concrete block walls. Most of the other parts of the building, other than, I think, Tony, you mentioned this last time we met, would be concrete block and obviously booking intake, the processing, but most of the other part of the building would be, regular stud walls. But these 3 rooms within, if you look carefully, those walls are a little bit thicker in plan, would be concrete block wall, and you have to have special ventilation there and exhaust and then the ammunition area. This is kind of goes beyond what we're doing now for the study, but I know Tony's going to price that in. He's done a lot of this kind of work. You'd have blast relief vents and stuff like that. But this works well because right now you don't have to. Right now you have to bring the ammunition. We were there when you were delivering some ammo, Chief. I think we helped carry some of it down for you. So, anyway.
As Bob is saying, we spend the money where we need to and we save it where we can. So block wall, there's specific areas of the building that we need to provide block, and then other areas where it can just be metal stud. What we also do in some areas, depending on the security, is that we provide plywood along the wall to provide another level of security so that people can't break in and they can't break out. So if it's just a simple drywall, you can easily punch through the wall, but with plywood, that's not happening. So again, we strategically kind of look at the walls, identify the security levels, and then go from there. Across the hall, in gray, is basically the heart of the building. This is where we have the mechanical, we have the electrical, we have IT and telephone and data.
I'm sorry, John, I lost this mouse.
What we're doing there is locating it in the center so that we can branch everything out. If it's on one end, we got to travel all the way so if it's centrally located, it's easily distributed throughout the building. To the left of the gray area is a orange, which is detectives. What we have here is a soft interview room right off the corridor so that if we have a detainee in booking and they want to bring them to detectives, they can bring them into that soft room right off the corridor. They don't need to go to the back of the detectives. It's in the right spot. In the back, we got detective supervisor and an open work area so that they're on an exterior wall. We can get natural light in them, but still provide security as required.
And I think you mentioned openness. I know that one of the committee members mentioned that, and I think when you look at the I'm afraid to touch this thing because it seems to be kind of, if you look at the, John, I'm pointing to it, if you look at the patrol, both the officers and the part-time areas are really open areas as much as possible. In detectives, we definitely have this more open area here. So we do listen carefully, and wherever possible, where the program didn't call for a private office or a privacy situation, we did use that openness. Yep. Thanks, John.
Yeah, so for example, if you were to enter into the purple area, to the right of you is the officers. So there's basically a worktop, which would have like a half wall. So you can see all the way from the front to the back. It's not like all kinds of walls. Line of sight is always something that we think about. So off to the top left is the pink area, which is property evidence. This is where we house all of the long-term, short-term files. We also have individual storage.
You mean evidence?
Or evidence, sorry. We also have separate weapons, cash, and narcotic vaults. And then right now we're showing these as walls, but these walls could be literally chain link cages that, again, they don't need to be hard walls, but they just need to be secure. Narcotics obviously wants to be in a private, solid, enclosed room so that we can have proper ventilation in case of, having large quantities of drugs. So we also provided a bulk/vehicle evidence, which allows the PD to bring larger equipment through an overhead door so that, again, if they get a vehicle or motorcycle or whatever
ATV or something.
whatever it is, they can easily get it in, they can get it out, and it has a lot of flexibility there. One main thing to the property evidence is that the evidence custodial workstation. So what we have is a service drop-off so that during hours, the officers can drop off their evidence to that space, or off hours, we have lockers outside so that it's a two-way. So from the corridor, they drop their evidence off. The processor on the other side has the access, and then they basically grab it. So it's got that chain of command, so it's properly secure.
The other thing we always do in that situation is if you see where my mouse is on the screen, where the evidence drop would be during normal, let's say, business hours, when the evidence tech might be there. And again, you got to think, this building's going to be here for 50 years, so, staffing will change over that time, right? If I'm an officer, I can only go into that area. We are working with a department right now, a couple of departments right now, where only 2 people in the whole department have evidence access, because it's all card key, and it's not even the chief or deputy chief. So the idea is that, only authorized staff would go beyond this area, right? So, and if I'm an attorney and I need to look at some evidence or something, I would either come to that window where I could see it, or else they might go to the admin suite where they can use a conference room. But the access is very limited to that area, the per chain of custody and CALIA standards.
And then lastly is the red area in the lower left. This is the booking and processing. So we have a 2-bay sally port. We have a secure vestibule to get in from the sally port into booking. So it's basically creating a man trap. So you open one door, but you can't open the other until the other one closes. It's basically a security requirement. So we have one going in and we have one going out. In between those, we have the booking kind of processing area where we have the live scan, we have the intoxilizer, and a small interview room. To the back, where we want to kind of hide the cells, is we have a male, a female, and a juvenile. So the juvenile is separated by sight and sound per CALIA requirements.
State requirements.
Yeah, there's state. And then we also have a detainee toilet room so that if, in case someone needs to use the restroom, they don't need to leave this area. So everything is properly kind of located in the locations that we don't need to travel through the building to get to a restroom.
I think what John said is critical. A lot of poorly designed departments or buildings, there's a lot of travel where detainees are taken through the whole building, sometimes up and down elevators that are used by outsiders. This layout, as you said so well, John, early on, is layered to the back. So detectives, evidence, booking, processing, and patrol are to the back, and you don't have to walk somebody right through the whole place to be able to have them, processed through or interviewed or spoken to or held temporarily until they're released. And that's very important to the operations.
Bob and John, if I can jump in for a minute. It's 9:08 or thereabouts. I want to make sure that we have some time for at least the committee members, and you got another slide, so thank you.
Do you want me to stay on that slide or whatever?
No, does anybody have any questions on the plans? I know we went through it quick, there's a lot to go through, but, sure.
It won't be your last opportunity to go through the floor plan, I assure you.
If you're good with the plans, then we can look at the exterior perspectives. So Again, what we did was we took the liberty to try to dress up the building to make it a little more pleasing, tie it into the community. So what we're recommending right now, or illustrating is a horizontal clap sideboard, siding, sorry, and with a masonry base. So what we're thinking is maintenance, low maintenance. So we want to start from the bottom, have something durable that's going to stand the test of time of, snow, rain, all that stuff. We've provided some dormers to break the roof up, and along with those, we have some prominent gable ends to, again, break the elevations up, and that's where we took a little bit of liberty, where some of the square footage increased a little more than what it was supposed to, but I think we could get closer to where we were before. But right now, again, colors are not, set in stone. These are only suggested. What we're trying to do is just give you, ideas of how we could break the building up in color and materials.
So what we looked at is, and we could share some pictures with you, for example, of Lincoln. It's almost finished. It'll be finished in a few months. We have a similar stone base. It looks really, really nice. The chief was able to see that. We're suggesting probably 2 different colors of siding to punch out. I don't know, John, I can point, you could, but we're not saying the building's gonna be of a brown color. We're not saying that. We do have to kind of come to some quick agreements on it, because we do want to do one, more rendered image of the front of the building, which is really where my mouse is. I mean, that's the front entrance area, that kind of view. So we do have to get some understanding of where we want to go with this, because we don't have 2 more months to figure that out. But we're not implying these are the colors. We just put something on there so you could differentiate the planes, I guess you could argue.
Yep.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is basically get materials that's going to cover the budget. So the stone base is probably the more expensive part of the outside, and then as we go to the siding, it gets a little more cost effective. So if we want to see more stone, then we want to know that now than later, so that Tony can provide that pricing. So
Or
what we-
brick, Tony.
whatever material
Yeah, whatever it is.
Again, this is a first pass, we can definitely, this is going to be morphing as we, start and move down the road. So, so as you look at both images, it's looking at, the front, and then it's also looking at the back to give you both perspectives. Any questions?
So I think materials is something we should talk about, today. It's up to you guys. We serve at your pleasure, so.
Personally, fitting in New London, I think brick would be a better solution than stone. We don't have stone buildings running up and down Main Street, and it would be more economical.
Right, this is just a stone base, right?
And I'd suggest brick.
Right. Yep. A brick base.
Correct.
The brick base would be more in character.
Got it. Should some of the walls be brick? Again, we're very cautious about the budget, because obviously, as Tony will tell you, brick's way more than siding.
So, yeah, for me, there's X amount of facade. I'll do a proportional 20-80 split of masonry versus clapboard, whatever that tends to work out to be.
I think
Far enough away from picking brick and stone and clapboard that there's several weeks of decisions to be made.
I think if we had our ruthers and we didn't show, if you look at the screen, we didn't carry let's call it the brick base, okay? Probably not so much brick, probably more of a nice finished, polished CMU or something. I don't think we'd use brick, to be honest with you, probably more like, well, we use whatever you want us to use, but we generally don't do a brick base. We might do a polished or a nice finished concrete block wall, which looks very nice. It's got color, it's got texture, rather than just brick. Brick base is a little unusual, probably.
That's a schematic design DD question.
Yeah. But the question I do have is, we'd like to carry the base around the whole building. Right now, what we're showing, if you look at the screen, is we're showing that the areas that we're implying as a different color siding, not having that base.
So that's something that, we're just telling you, our preference would be, right, John, to carry it through?
Yeah, yep.
So we just need some guidance on that.
From a curb appeal point of view, from my perspective, I would, that front gable just doesn't look great, the main entrance gable. And if we could take brick up to the eave instead of just up 3 feet off the ground, that would, again, I think, be more in keeping with what New London is.
On the front of the building.
Just the front
Right.
facade.
We don't disagree with that. Again, I know it's shocking the architects say this, but we're very cognizant of budgets, and we didn't want to take a lot of liberties with, So you're talking, if you look at the screen, because I'm going to point to it for everybody, you're talking about this right here, right? Right there? So
Yeah,
maybe-
Bruce, I think that was one of the questions that I had relative to the single-story, two-story, something that gives the building some prominence and some oomph, that people, when they pull in, understand it's not just a big ranch clapboard building, right? There's a function here of municipal importance, community significance. How do we address that with the building? And I like the idea of at least that front entry being something solid, something more, quote, permanent, if you will, in masonry. So we can certainly work through that. I think that's what you're getting to. Good.
I think that there are folks here that have some questions, not only about, or maybe questions and ideas about the facade, but also about the inside. So I know, Phil, you've got some questions, and then Lieutenant Keith also does. So if we can start.
So just to back up to the inside, this is very helpful because it helps to translate the spreadsheet program into what this starts to really look like. But in fact, the police department really is people, and everything in here is the result of either somebody doing something or something that somebody's already done or whatever. Just to help me understand this 50-year time frame, Chief, for instance, just as a for instance, at 9:15 on a Friday morning, how many people are on duty at the New London Police Department right now?
Myself, Lieutenant Keith, the admin assistant, a patrol officer, and a dispatcher.
So
And one person is off today. Typically, that other person would be here.
Five or six
Yep.
on a Friday morning, just to pick a day. How many people are expected to populate this building during this 50-year time frame? You must have talked a little bit about what the future really means.
We did. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what staffing levels are going to look like in 50 years, but I know that we've had some growth. We added a police officer in 2018. We added a dispatcher in 2022, but the program shows that as well is some room for growth. So, the LBA encouraged me to I felt like I was getting a little bit stuck in today, and I'm really trying to think about tomorrow, because it's not for the staff members that are here today, here right now working. It's for the staff members that'll be here in 50 years, protecting the city, the town. So I don't know exactly what staffing levels will look like. I anticipate there will be some growth, both in police officers and in civilians, in terms of dispatchers or administrative functions, but I don't know exactly what that's going to be. We tried to identify that as best we could in the program.
We also got to keep in mind that a lot of this program is not staffed like 24/7, like property and evidence. There doesn't need to be someone in there 8 hours a day. Booking and intake, that's kind of a come and go, and it's, again, not going to be staffed. They'll be in their office or they'll be in their cruisers. Departmental support is basically a support to the building along with the gray. The yellow spaces up front are community kind of multi-purpose space. So more than half of this building is not fully occupied 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It's support space to support the police department itself.
Yeah, so, exactly. So when you look at the plan, dispatch, of course, in the future, probably records, but maybe not right now. Definitely patrol, definitely detectives. So the locker rooms and so forth in the break room are just support functions.
Just to close the loop, is it fair to say then that you do not have sort of a staffing plan in mind for the full use of this building. It's just we need a little more here and a little bit there.
We'll be using the whole building. We're bursting at the seams as it is now. We will be using the whole building, but I guess if you're asking, I don't have a formula that in 2064 we'll have 14 full-time police officers. I don't have that kind of a formula. It depends on what happens in the town. It depends on growth. It depends on need. Policing has certainly changed in the 20 years that I've been doing it, so I don't know what it's going to be looking like in the future.
As far as the Sallyport and the booking processing area, so the way I read this is I would bring somebody into the Sallyport, go through the secure vestibule through 2 doors, and then come into the booking processing.
Yeah, there's a man trap, so they're interlocked doors, so you can't open one before the other's closed.
Okay, so, and maybe it's different, but what we have now downstairs works, because we put them basically into our trap. It's 3 doors, and there's a window that the bail commissioner can converse with them and everything, and it works. It keeps the bail commissioner safe. So how would that work in this situation?
Honestly, we're going to have a 30-minute conversation after this with you and the chief, so let's talk about, the way we did this is the way we normally would approach it, based on knowledge we have from multiple other departments. If it doesn't work for you, we could talk about it, but we were going to plan on doing it afterwards anyway to kind of look at the plan.
Okay.
But the idea here, the bail bondsman or whatever was frankly not mentioned to us, that interaction, so.
Right.
So.
I'm glad the lieutenant mentioned that. He and I are on the same page, because I have that written down as well.
Because then that also begs the question of if we need to have an ambulance come to the processing area, how do they get in? Are they going to walk through the officer's area? So most of my questions are probably addressed to that same topic. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Nothing? Okay. Are we at a point where we can open it up to our community members for questions? Oh, hold on. Oh.
Well, you can take mine if you want,
Yeah, we do have about 5 minutes.
You can take mine if you
Ashley, are we looking for any action today?
Yeah, are you guys looking for any action from us today? No. So I think what we do is, this was a lot of information and a lot of great information. We take this back, we can all noodle on it. I've got some things that I am thinking about, I know, that we can come back on to the next meeting in a few weeks. Go for it, Mr.
Yes.
Cardillo.
I guess if I could just,
Oh, yeah.
in wrapping up, not an action that we need today. I really wanted to get this out there, get some thoughts going. I would ask, with open meeting law and sending emails, just send me any questions, comments, concerns that you have over the next 2 weeks. I'm trying to take every comment from how does the ambulance get in to how, everything else that
Sure.
we've heard, the masonry. What can I put on it for $1? How does it affect impact, schedule, cost, budget, quality, durability? So please send me those comments. Again, we're not going to change the plan in the next 2 weeks, but we'll try to accommodate it somehow. Thank
Well,
you.
we can,
No more plan changes. You're done.
Okay. Joe, go ahead.
Okay, Joe Cardillo, New London resident. Quick question, back to the site plan. Can we pull up the site map on that, please? I know you've got a lot of considerations there, wetlands impact, whether you got to remediate any of that stuff. The crossings are going to cost some money, but if we can get back to blowing up the road access, and again, let me get my glasses on here. I can see the Hilltop Place there. We've all got to take a ride out. I've got to refresh my memory there. I'm not sure. Across the street, we've got a very busy shopping center. We've got a curb cut there at Hilltop. We're proposing 2 brand-new curb cuts, assuming, and again, this is not no knowledge of how this works with DOT, but I'm sure DOT's going to have some say on.
Yeah, our engineers work with them all the time, so.
So the question, the simple question I'm asking is, will those, not sure where the access and egress, the two curb cuts line up with what's across the street, whether DOT is going to say, listen, we want those in line. Right now, we've got, I believe Hilltop Place might be lined up with an entry into
Hannaford's.
into Hannaford's. In recent years, we've put in a signal that we hope people are paying attention to for crossing. It's not the most visible, but it is used from time to time. So there's people accessing Hilltop by foot. So my simple question is this: will new access or egress, I'm sure they're going to require or at least propose that it aligns with something across the street. And when that happens, will it rise to a level that then DOT has some say into whether we need a traffic signal put in on any one of those entries or exits, a turning lane? Do we need to consider stacking for turns? If one of those lines up with the post office, which I don't believe it's going to get that far down, I think that's going to be a consideration. So I'm just throwing that out there. I know the engineers, the civil engineers are going to work on all this stuff, but certainly those costs are going to be, they're going to impact the total cost. If the state of New Hampshire says you need a traffic light, we're going to have to buy a traffic light. The state of New Hampshire says you're going to have to extend the paving, the curbing, a turning lane. So I just want to ensure that we look at the entire picture and all the costs that are going to be associated with that site, including how you remediate wetland impact.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Is there anyone else from the community?
I'm sorry, Joe, Cardillio?
No IO, just O.
Yep.
Just an O. Okay,
Just O. Cardillio.
okay, thank you.
Nothing else? All right, well then for our community, for our committee members, let's take the next few weeks, review this. We have a lot to think about. Think about the facade, think about things inside. If there are things that come up in the next few weeks, shoot them over to Tony, shoot them over to me, whomever you want, we'll get them over to Tony so that in our next meeting, he'll be prepared with some of those answers. And again, for our community members, if anything pops up, these will be posted online later today. Oh, they already are. So you guys will have access to them. Feel free to send in your emails to that email address, or get them to us whatever way you want, and we'll get them answered. All right, everyone, thank you.